Friday? That's on Friday?
No, probably early.
Today?
Yeah.
Huh?
You came for sure and lost.
Sure and off.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم حكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. This is our third class in Umdah Al-Ahkaam, right? Hadith Al-Ahkaam, hadith that are dealing with the rulings of fasting. Hadith Al-Ahkaam, hadith that are dealing with the rulings for fasting. Right. Any questions from last week? طيب. We stopped at the third hadith. عن أنس ابن مالك رضي الله تعالى عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تسحروا فإن في السحور بركة تسحروا فإن في السحور بركة. طيب. عن أنس ابن مالك. Anas ibn Malik, Sahabi, one of the companions of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said that he heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam say tasaharu. What does tasaharu mean? Does anyone know? Tasaharu. Alright, what are we talking about? We're talking about fasting in Ramadan. If you recall last week, we spoke about the hadith about when to fast, right? If you see the crescent moon, to break your fast. If you see the crescent moon, then to fast, or to fast and break your fast. Meaning, it marks the beginning of Ramadan, and meaning the crescent moon again marks the end of Ramadan. طيب. In this hadith, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, تَسَحَّرُوا فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. He says, تَسَحَّرُوا. You have any idea what that means? It means take suhoor. What is suhoor? To take suhoor, فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. Then there is blessing in suhoor. Like, what is suhoor? What does that mean?
The meal before you start fasting.
Huh?
The meal before you start fasting.
The meal before you start fasting. Mumtaz. Some of the scholars say if it is sahur, is the meal. And suhoor, with a dhamma, they say this is the actual act of eating the food. Sahur is the meal, and suhoor is you actually take the Allahu Alam. But this is what some of the scholars say about that. So the question is, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he encouraged everyone to make sahur, tasahuru. فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. For indeed inside of suhoor is barakah. But when you hear tasaharu, that means what? Is that a command?
Is it a command?
Yeah, when Allah subhanahu, when the Prophet ﷺ said tasaharu, do you remember the rule that we discussed with that? Huh? Any command from Allah and His Messenger, what does it mean? Does anyone remember?
You said, what does it mean?
Tasahharu. It's a command. Like, what type of command is it? What does this command mean? In general, what's the rule of thumb that we discussed with commands? Do you remember?
That is obligatory, right?
Right. So the rule of thumb, the general rule, anytime Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if they command us to do anything, the rule of thumb is that it is obligatory. Unless we have something to take it from becoming obligatory to mean something else. Right? So this hadith right here, we find that Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, tasahharu, means take suhoor. فَإِنَّ فِي السُّهُورِ barakah. Here is also a command, but it's not obligatory. That would mean that if a person did not take suhoor in the morning, then this is haram for them. However, eating suhoor in the morning is considered a blessing. It's considered a blessing. Right. What time is suhoor is the question. What time is suhoor? Does anybody know? Is it 1 o'clock in the morning? Let's say Fajr comes in at 5 o'clock. 4:45. If Fajr comes in at 4:45, what time is suhoor?
Anytime before that.
Huh?
Anytime before that.
I'm asking you, anytime?
No, I'm saying anytime before.
Anytime before Fajr?
Fajr.
You agree with him? Anytime before. So let's say Isha is at 9:45. We pray Isha.
Anytime before Fajr.
So let me. So what you're saying is, at 10:30, we already prayed Isha at 9:15, 9:45. At 10:30, I can have suhoor.
I'm not sure about that, but
You said anytime, huh? When can we eat suhoor, huh?
Before you start the fast.
Before you start fasting. So let's say Fajr is in 5 minutes. It's right before Fajr. How much time before Fajr?
I don't know.
Right. So the word suhoor, or sahur, the word itself, it means qabil al-fajr, means right before Fajr. That's what the word it means. It's a time. It's a period of time right before Fajr. Right? So then, this time has been legislated for a Muslim to break their fast, or, for a Muslim to start eating before they fast. For a Muslim to eat before they fast. وَهُوَ قَبِيلَ الصُّبْحِ. They say it's right before Salatul Fajr. قَالَ عُلَمَاؤُنَا. So I'm going to give you some of the scholars of Imam al-Shafi'i. You know we have how many schools of thought are there? Do you know?
4.
There are more than 4 schools of thought. But there are 4 famous ones, if you will. There are 4 famous ones that people are familiar with. But there are more than 4, right? But the most people are only familiar with 4, and their particular schools have been preserved, more or less. Their particular schools have been preserved. So according to Imam al-Shafi'i, he says, يَدْخُلُ وَقْتُهُ بِنُصْفَ اللَّيْلِ. Imam al-Shafi'i, or the people that follow the school of Imam al-Shafi'i, they say that this starts at half of the night. Suhoor, it starts at half of the night. Like, what time is half of the night? Do we know? At midnight?
Right.
No? What time is half of the night?
So the third of the night, so
You the only one? What's half of the night?
I don't know. Add hours up until I went to.
Add what?
Add the night hours after Isha and before Fajr.
So you add after Isha, before Fajr, and divide by 2? Okay. When does the night start?
Maghrib.
If the night starts at Maghrib, why would you start from Isha?
I meant Maghrib.
You meant Maghrib. Right, one test. So then if we start from Salatul Maghrib up until Fajr, and if you take those times and put it in half, then that would be half of the night. It wouldn't necessarily be midnight, it would be half of the night. So the night would start from Maghrib up until what? Fajr. Ahsant. From Maghrib up until Fajr. This is according to Imam al-Shafi'i. However, with Imam Ahmed, they say fihi nadar. meaning but I'll give you another piece of benefit from the scholars of Al-Islam. Let's say, for example, one scholar disagrees with the position of another scholar. All right? Let's say, for example, Sheikh Uthaymeen says one thing and Sheikh bin Baz says something else. Right? They disagree on this issue. They won't start talking about each other. They may say fihi nadar. Fihi nadar. This means perhaps there's a different position. That's what that means. Fihi nadar. It's easy, it's calm, it's easy, it's not abrasive, it's not offensive. But they say, there may be something different about that. So the ulama, they say fihi nadar, meaning, there might be some other position with regards to that. طيب, لأن السحر لغة قبيل الفجر. They say, the reason why they say that this position may not be correct is because the word itself, sahar, it means close to fajr. It means close to fajr, meaning salatul fajr. Right? That's what the word itself means, as-sahar, close to al-fajr. طيب. Some of them say it's sudus al-akhir. So if you take the time from maghrib up until fajr and divide it by 6, divide it into 6 parts, the last 6 part of the night, they consider that to be what? To be what? Sahar. The time that a person should eat something before it's time for them to fast. So during this time, what should a person do? They should eat during that particular time. They should eat during that particular time. وروى إمام أحمد من حديث جابر رضي الله تعالى عنه مرفوعا من أراد أن يصوم فليتسحر ولو بشيء. It is highly recommended for a Muslim to take suhoor before they fast. This is something that is highly recommended. You find in a hadith that Imam Ahmed, or is recorded by Imam Ahmed, he says, "Man arada an yasum," whoever wants to fast, فَلْيَتَسَحَّرْ, then they should take suhoor, walau bi shay'in, even if it's something small, even if it's something very small, they should also take their suhoor. And they say, "Kamal fadilat as-suhoor tahsul bil-akl." A person should have something to eat. The hadith Amr ibn al-As, who was also a companion, he said, "Inna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam," he said, "Faslu ma bayna siyamina wa siyam ahli al-kitabi aklatu sahar." The difference between our fasts and the fast of the people of the book is that the Muslim, they eat suhoor. The Muslim, they eat suhoor. طيب. Question. What's the ruling on eating suhoor? Is it wajib? Huh? No. It says, "Amru bihi lin-nadl." Yani it's something that is highly recommended. Meaning, what? So if we say something is recommended, what does that mean? If it's recommended.
You should do it.
So if you do it, then what? If it's recommended and I do it, what happens? This is something very important to understand in Islam. We have 5 rules in Islam, 5 primary rulings. Haram, or something that is what? Do you know? Haram, makruh, hated, wajib, recommend, mustahab, and something that is called mubah. So we have something that is considered wajib. This means that if you do it, if you do something that is wajib, you'll be rewarded for doing it. And if you leave it off, you'll be punished for leaving it off. What mean? Right. Something that is hated, right? Or something that is recommended. You'll be rewarded if you do it, but you will not be punished if you leave it off. Right? Then after that, we have what? What's after that? We have something that is haram. Right? So something that is haram, if you do it, you will be what? If you do that thing that is haram, you'll be what? You'll be punished. And if you leave it off, you'll be what? Rewarded. Ahsan. Same thing. If you do something that is makruh, something that is hated, if you leave it off, you'll be what? La? If you leave it off, you'll be what?
Which one is this one?
Something that is makruh, something that is hated. If you leave it off,
If you leave it off,
you'll be rewarded.
rewarded.
But if you do it, you won't be punished. Ahsan. And then we have something that is mubah. Something that is mubah, meaning there's no reward or punishment associated with it. There's no reward or punishment associated with it. Is that clear? Right. So then, when it comes to eating sahur, if a person eats sahur,
Can you explain that last one?
Which one? Mubah?
Yeah.
There's no reward or punishment associated with it.
Yeah, but
So, for example, what can be considered sahur? Let's say not sahur. What can be considered mubah? Something that is mubah. Let's say
you said there's no reward.
there's no reward or punishment associated with that act in and of itself. So let's say, for example, you sitting in that chair right now. You get reward for sitting in that chair? Nah. You gonna get punished for sitting in that chair? Nah. Now, what a person does can alter that verdict depending on your intentions, right? But we're just saying something that you do usually, right? Let's say you walk outside of your car, you open up the door and sit in a chair in your car. What's the rule on that? I said it. There's no reward or punishment associated with that action. This is something that is called mubah. Right now I'm drinking this coffee.
But religiously, give me an example.
What do you mean religiously?
Say if we is something, because that would be recommended though. Like if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said so and so and so and so, but it's you don't get no reward or you don't get no punishment for it. Well, give me like an example for that. Like what do is that just?
What do you mean, Sheikh? I'm confused. Anything sort of, if the ruling of something being considered mubah, right? It means in and of itself, there's no reward in the Quran or Sunnah associated with that action. There's no punishment from the Quran or the Sunnah associated with that action. Remember, in Islam, everything that we do is a ruling associated with it, right? So, for example, when you look at something, when you walk somewhere, when you move your arms, when you talk, there's all rulings. Everything that we do, there's a verdict associated with it. Either it's halal, haram, recommended, hated, or mubah. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That makes
understand exactly what you're saying.
right. So the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't command us to do something unless it's either wajib or it's recommended.
That's what I was saying.
Right. And he wouldn't prohibit us from doing anything except it was haram or hated. But with regards to things that are mubah, I'll give you an example. If the Prophet ﷺ walked in a certain place and he stood there. So Ibn Umar, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he would want to stand in a place that the Prophet ﷺ stood. But there was no reward or punishment associated with it. Well, so that's considered something that is mubah, meaning mubah. Is that clear, Sheikh? Tayyib. So then, al-amr, a command in this hadith, this is a command that is recommended. It's recommended. Why isn't it considered wajib? That's the question. Why isn't it considered wajib? Because there's something that took it away from being wajib. By it saying in the hadith that there's a blessing in it, it would indicate that if you don't do it, you don't get that blessing, but you're not getting punished if you leave it off. We also find many of the scholars, they hold the position, la yajibu suhoor, that a suhoor itself is not wajib. The scholars of the past, from the companions on downward, some hold the position that it is a consensus, ijma', a consensus from the scholars of the past that having suhoor is not obligatory. I've heard some people say, is my fast still valid because I did not eat suhoor? Can I still fast? And the answer is yes, your fast is still valid if you do not have suhoor, if you do not have suhoor. طيب. قال ابن دقيق العيد. Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, he's from the scholars of the past of Imam al-Shafi'i. He held the position. He says, هذه بركة يجوز أن تعود إلى الأمور الأخروية. طيب. In this hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ, he told us to eat suhoor, And he said that in this suhoor is barakah, it's a blessing. So, قال حافظ ibn Hajar, he mentions that فَإِنَّ إِقَامَةَ السُنَّةِ, the reward that a person gets from eating this suhoor is that they get the reward of following the sunnah. And the reward of which you may not see in the dunya, but rather you may see it in the next life. وَيَحْتَمِلُ أَن تَعُودُ إِلَى أُمُورِ الدُّنْيَوِيَّةِ. And then they also say that the reward for eating suhoor, the blessing could also be with affairs in your worldly life. So, the scholars of Islam, they explain that this blessing that is inside of eating suhoor, it could be in the dunya, and it could also be in the next life, in the akhirah. With regards to the dunya, they say that this is كَقُوَّةُ الْبَدَنِ, that it will give a person strength for fasting. If you get up in the morning and eat suhoor, perhaps you might have more strength to fast throughout the course of the day or the rest of the day. وَتَيْسِيرِهِ مِنْ غَيْرِ إِجْحَافٍ فِيهِ وَالْبَرَكَةُ مُحْتَمَلَةٌ لِنَتَضَافِ إِلَى كُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِنَ الْفِعْلِ. If a person, every act or every action that a person does when they're fasting, you're going to need some energy. And perhaps that person eating suhoor in the morning will give that person the strength that is necessary to continue their fast. It will give that person strength that is necessary to continue their fast. That's pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
So then what's the verdict on eating suhoor? Huh? It's wajib, right?
No, it's recommended.
It's recommended. Why is it recommended?
Because it's benefit.
It's a benefit in it. Why isn't it wajib though? Why isn't it wajib? It's a command. The Prophet ﷺ commanded us in this hadith to eat suhoor. Why isn't it wajib? Fadl.
There's no punishment in it.
There's no punishment. How do we know there's no punishment in it?
Because it wasn't explained.
Ahsan.
Explicit.
It wasn't explicit in the hadith. That's a nice benefit. Also, we mentioned that the ulama or the scholars of the past said that it was a consensus, ijma'. It was a consensus that it wasn't wajib. It was a consensus that it wasn't wajib. One of the beautiful things about our religion is that we have rules and regulations. Can you imagine a religion that did not have rules and regulations, and people did whatever they want, however way they wanted to move, said whatever they wanted to say, and there's no accountability? How can a person worship with no rules and regulations? Everything is however way you feel. You say whatever you want, you do whatever you want to do, you oppress whoever you want to oppress with no rules and no regulations. Islam is far above this. And the next hadith, عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله تعالى عنه عن زيد بن ثابت رضي الله تعالى عنه قال تسحرنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثم قام إلى الصلاة قال أنس قلت لزيد كم كان بين الأذان والسحور قال قدر 50 آية. In this hadith, this hadith was reported, or Anas ibn Malik, he reported this hadith from Zayd ibn Thabit. Does anyone know who Zayd ibn Thabit is? First of all, who was Anas ibn Malik? Does anyone know? We mentioned him in the previous hadith. He was a servant of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Anas ibn Malik. Right? But who was Zayd ibn Thabit? Is he important? Is he important in Islam? Has anyone ever heard who he was? Does anyone know anything about Zayd ibn Thabit? Huh? I think it's important to know who he is. So we're going to read a little bit about Zayd ibn Thabit. Right? His name was Zayd ibn Thabit ibn Dahak ibn Lodhan bi Fath al-Lam. It says Al-Ansari. He was from the Ansar. Does anyone know the difference between the Ansar and the Muhajirin? When you say Fulan, such and such, Al-Ansari, and we have such and such, Al-Muhajirin. What's the difference between the Ansari and the Muhajirin? Does anyone know? Labas. The Ansar, or first we're going to start with the Muhajirin. The Muhajirin are the Muslims during the time of the Prophet ﷺ that migrated from Mecca to Medina. So when those companions, when they left Mecca, they left everything and they migrated to Medina, they're called the Muhajirin. Why? Because they made hijrah from Mecca to where? Medina. To Medina. They made hijrah from Mecca to Medina, and they're called the Muhajirin. When the Muslims arrived in Medina, there were other Muslims there. Those Muslims were called the what? The Ansar. The Ansar because they aided. Ansar means help. The helpers. They came, the Ansar, they were helpers to the Muhajirin and helpers to the Prophet ﷺ. So, Zayd ibn Thabit, based on his name, he was from where? The Muhajirin or the Ansar? Ansar. Ahsant. And his name is Laqab al-Bukhari. Kana ahad kutab al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was one of the writers of the Quran, of the Prophet ﷺ. Yaktub lahu al-wahi. He will write the wahi, or the revelation from the Prophet ﷺ. And they said that when Zayd ibn Thabit, لما قدم صلى الله عليه وسلم المدينة, كان زيد ابن 11 سنة. When Zayd ibn Thabit, when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, Zayd ibn Thabit was 11 years old. How old was he? 11. He was a kid. Zayd ibn Thabit was a kid. Huh? وكان عمره يوم بعد 66 وفيها قتل أبوه. Well, so here, when he died, they say he was 66 when he died. And some say 56. Some say he was 56. Al-Muhim, النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, it says, كان أعلم الصحابة بالفرائض. That Zayd ibn Thabit was from the most knowledgeable of the companions with ilm al-fara'id, knowledge of Islamic inheritance. Zayd ibn Thabit was more knowledgeable than any of the companions with the inheritance laws of Islam. Hatta qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to the point that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said about Zayd ibn Thabit, afradukum Zayd, the one that knows Islamic inheritance laws better than anyone else, his name was Zayd. Ahadun ahadu min jam' al-Quran. He was also one who compiled the Quran. وكتبه في خلافة أبي بكر. And he also wrote it during the reign of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. وَنَقْلَهُ مِنَ الصُّحُفِ إِلَى مُصْحَفٍ في زمن عثمان. And he took the Quran from pages and he put it in a book, the Mus'haf, in the time period of Uthman ibn Affan. So this is something a little. So who was Uthman? Uthman was the fourth or the third Khalifa after the Prophet or after Abu Bakr. Which one was he? Uthman ibn Affan. Who was he? Yes, salam. Right. So we have after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, there are 4 rightly guided Khalifas. Who were they? The first one's Abu Bakr, Ahsant. Who was after Abu Bakr? Umar, Ahsant. Who was after Umar? Uthman, Ahsant. Who after Uthman? Ali. Tayyib. So then the Quran was put in the Mus'haf during whose tenure, or during whose khilafah, whose leadership? Uthman. It was put in the Mus'haf. Tayyib. So back to the hadith. They came to the Prophet ﷺ. Well, Zayd ibn Thabit, he also narrated on the Prophet ﷺ 72 hadith. 72 hadith. وزيد بن ثابت يكنى بأبي سعيد وقيل بأبي خارجة. They said that his kunya was Abu Sa'id. They would call him Abu Sa'id or Abu Kharija. Abu Kharija. طيب. And he said, تسحرنا أنا والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كما ترشد إليه رواية النسائي. So we have different narrations. But here, Zayd ibn Thabit, he was with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He was with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So the question is, how much time, and if you look back at the hadith, it says in the hadith, قَدْ تَصَحَرْنَا مَعَ نَبِي وَمَعَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. We ate suhoor with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. ثُمَّ قَامَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَالَ أَنَسْ. And then after they had suhoor, he stood to pray. So Anas said to Zayd, how long was the time between the adhan and suhoor? What was the time between the adhan and suhoor? So Zayd said, قَدْرُ 50 آيَةً. He said the time difference between the adhan and suhoor was about 50 verses of the Quran. 50 verses in the Quran. This was the time period. طيب. قال في الفتح, and we find in Fath al-Bari with the explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, والمدة التي بين الفراغ من السهور والدخول في الصلاة وهي قراءة 50 آية. The distance or the time period between the Prophet ﷺ finishing suhoor, breakfast, and entering into the prayer, it was about 50 verses in the Quran if a person were to recite them. If a person were to recite them. And we have in another narration, قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet ﷺ, he said to Anas, Ya Anas, إني أريد الصيام. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to Anas, I want to fast. أطعمني شيئا. So he told Anas, I want to fast, give me something to eat. فجدته بتمر وإناء فيه ماء. He said, so I gave the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam a tamar, or a date, and I gave him a cup or a bowl of water. وذلك بعدما أذن بلال. And this was after the adhan of Bilal. قال يا أنس انظر رجلا يأكل معي. He said, oh Anas, look for someone to eat with me. He didn't want to eat suhoor by himself, rather he wanted to have someone with him. فَتَعَوْتُ زَيْد. So I called Zayd ibn Thabit. فَجَاءَ فَتَصَحَّرَ مَعَهُ ثُمَّ قَامَ فَصَلَّى رَكْعَتَيْنِ ثُمَّ خَرَجَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. So here, in this hadith you can find in the hadith of Imam al-Nasai. So he says, he told Anas, look for someone to eat with me. Look for someone to eat suhoor with me. فَدَعَوْتُ زَيْد. So I called Zayd ibn Thabit to come. فَجَاءَ فَتَصَحَّرَ مَعَهُ. So Zayd, he came and he ate with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. ثُمَّ قَامَ فَصَلَّى رَكْعَتَيْنِ. Then he stood and prayed 2 raka'ats. ثُمَّ خَرَجَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. And then he left to go to the masjid for Salatul Fajr. But when we look at the hadith, there are many things that a person can pull from this hadith. The first thing is that when a person eats their food, they should not eat by themselves. I know in our culture, when a person has some food, we like to take our food to ourselves and go in a corner and eat it and not share with anyone. This is not the adab or the way of a Muslim. If في hadith or in a hadith, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, if it's enough food, it mentions if it's enough food for one person, then it's enough for 2. Right? And so when the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was given his food, he said what? Go look for someone to eat with me. Bring someone to eat with us. Meaning he brought Zayd ibn Thabit to come eat with them. Right? This is the adab and akhlaq of a Muslim. You should not, especially suhoor or anything like that, you should not eat your food by yourself, eat with someone else. As this was the action of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And then after he finished eating, he prayed 2 raka'at. This is also another sunnah, is that the sunnah before you pray Salatul Fajr in Jama'ah, you should pray 2 raka'at in your home before you leave. This is also a sunnah, it's something that is highly recommended. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam also mentioned in the hadith that the 2 sunnah prayers before Fajr is better than the dunya wa ma fiha. Okay, maqala sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That the 2 sunnah prayers before Fajr is better than the whole dunya and everything that is in it. ثُمَّ خَرَجَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. And then after that, he left for the salah. After that, he left for the salah. طيب. Any questions about suhoor? Right. So what's understood when we said that we heard the Prophet ﷺ, he heard Bilal call the adhan, and then he went to eat. So does that mean we eat when we hear the adhan? Which adhan were they talking about? Huh?
I don't know how to explain it, but the second adhan.
Right. So the adhan here, we're talking about two adhans. They're called two adhans. Just so that anyone that's listening to this class, and he said that they heard the adhan of Bilal and then they started to eat. So a person might say, hey, if I'm fasting, as soon as the adhan comes in, I can what? I can go eat. Rather, your suhoor is before the adhan, meaning the adhan for the salah. So there are two adhans. The first adhan that they're calling here is the adhan to wake people up. This adhan here is before the adhan for the salah. So it says, فَعَلَى هَذَا فَالْمَرَادُ بِقَوْلِهِ كَمْ كَانَ بَيْنَ الْأَذَانِ وَالسُّحُورِ. What is understood when they say, what is the time difference, the time between the adhan and suhoor? They're talking about adhan ibn Maktum. Ibn Maktum. لأن بلالا كان يؤذن قبل الفجر. Bilal used to make the adhan before Fajr, and Ibn Maktum would make the adhan when Fajr came in. والآخر يؤذن إلى الطلعة. وقد قال صلى الله عليه وسلم في صحيحين وغيرهما من حديث عائشة. النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, إن بلالا كان يؤذن بالليل. He said, Bilal, he will call the adhan for the night. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كلوا واشربوا حتى يؤذن ابن مكتوم. He said, eat and drink until you hear the adhan of Ibn Maktum. فإنه لا يؤذن حتى يطلع الفجر. He says, يطلع الفجر. He says, Ibn Maktum, anytime you hear his adhan, he only calls the adhan when Fajr is in. When Fajr, so therefore, when you hear Fajr, the adhan for Fajr, you are to what? You are to what? What are you supposed to do when you hear the adhan of Fajr? Huh?
That's when you start fasting.
So what if you eat? You stop eating? What do you do?
You said that you stop eating?
Mm-hmm. Or you start eating?
You stop eating.
You stop eating. I said. Like, what if you're eating something, something's in your hand, in your mouth, and you hear the adhan for Fajr? What do you do?
That's a question I wanted to ask.
You didn't ask me, I asked you. What do you do?
I asked you.
What do you do? Huh?
Some people say you can.
What do you do? I don't want to know nobody else say. What do you do? What do you do?
Finish what's in your mouth and you stop.
You finish what's in your mouth and then you stop. Like, you don't grab nothing else? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kulu washrabu hatta yatabayyana lakum al-ayah. Al-khaydu al-abyatu min khaydu al-aswati min al-fajr. Al-ayah. Like, Allah says, eat and drink until hatta yatabayyan, until it becomes clear the thread of the night. The khaydu al-abyat min khaydu al-aswati min al-fajr. So in essence, you eat until you yatabayyan, until it becomes clear that Fajr is in, more or less, right? So what does that mean? Does that mean if they're calling you then and you're outside, you say, you know what? I still don't see this. I don't see anything. I don't care if they call you then. I'm just going to keep eating anyway, because it's not clear to me yet. Huh? Is that what you do?
I mean, that's what some people do.
That's what some people do. Hada mushkila. It's dangerous because, you know what I'm saying, you don't know for sure. You might be eating and Fajr is in and you're like, well, it's not clear to me. The ayah says so, it becomes clear to me. It's not clear to me. So I'm going to sit out here and I'm going to wait. Some of the ulama, they mention that the fact that we're in a city, you will not be able to see when Fajr comes in anyway. You won't be able to see when Fajr comes in anyway, for the most part, because of the buildings, etc., etc. So it may be more difficult anyway. According to Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned in one of his fatwa He said that if a person is eating and they call the adhan, and usually the ta'aleem, the time, well, first of all, most of us, I want to say 95, maybe almost, I don't want to say 100% because that's not, you're not 100% certain, but maybe 95% of the people use prayer schedules. 95%, maybe more than that. I'm going to be modest and say 95% of the people use prayer schedules. He says that according to the time that we're living in now, but most people have prayer schedules, there's no surety to say this is exactly when the prayer comes in. So he said that if you're living in those areas where people primarily use prayer schedules, in this case, when you hear the adhan, if you're eating, finish what you're eating. Finish it. That doesn't mean you grab something else, put it in your mouth, but if you're eating, finish it, your food, and then, stop after that. All right? This is a position of Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, with regards to that particular issue of putting your food down or continuing to eat. Now, any other questions about that? طيب. قال في الفروع يسن تأخير سهور إجماع من لم يخشى طلوع الفجر. It's sunnah for a person to delay the suhoor ijma'an. It's ijma', consensus from the earlier scholars that is sunnah for them to delay the suhoor as late as possible, but not until Fajr comes in. Obviously, you're going to finish before Fajr comes in. طيب. ويسن تعجيل الإفطار إذا تحقق غروب الشمس إجماعا. And there's also sunnah ta'jil, to speed up the iftar. When it's time to break your fast, the person should speed up breaking their fast as long as they are sure that the sun set, as long as they're sure that Maghrib is in. Right, we're going to stop with that, inshallah, and we'll pick up. We won't have class next week, right? We have something going on next week. So we won't have class next Saturday, and we won't have class the Saturday after that, and we won't have class the Saturday after that. We have, for 3 consecutive weeks, there are Ramadan preparation classes. Obviously, we're in the month of Sha'ban, so it's for us to try to increase in ibadah and worship as much as we can. If you try to fast as much as you can in preparation. Obviously, if you have not made up your fasts from last Ramadan and you still have fasts to do, then you want to make sure you finish them in this month of Sha'ban. You don't want to try to finish you don't want to have any fasting carry over from last Ramadan into this Ramadan coming up. That would be a mushkila, that would be a problem. That will definitely be problematic. But yes, for the next 3 weeks, inshallah, we will not be having this class. Next week, we have a lecture. There's a lecture series. The week after that, we're having a lecture here. And the week after that, we're having another lecture here. And then the week after that, it's going to be Ramadan. So we'll probably pick this back up in the month of Ramadan. And that way, we'll try to finish this during the month of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. Any questions?
So you have a lecture here, why?
A lecture here is the 5th. Sorry? The 5th of May. There's a lecture here the 5th of May. Sheikh Tar is going to be here. Farouk Post is going to be here. He studied with us. I think this. Abu Sajid and myself. And then a week after that, we have Mufti coming, which I think that's what, the 12th? The 12th? Mufti will be here. Muhammad Abu Isa is going to be here. A couple other brothers, inshallah ta'ala. Tayyip?
What's the class on?
What's it on? Ramadan.
Okay.
Everything's on Ramadan right now, man. Ramadan, inshallah, get everybody prepared. So, inshallah. Because when Ramadan comes, there's going to be a lot of questions. All of a sudden, this happened to me, that happened to me. I swallowed spit. I ate a whole meal, forgot it was Ramadan. What am I supposed to do? Somebody sprayed cologne and it got in my face. I sniffed it and it smelled good. Does that break my fast? You know what I'm saying? That's how it is. I'm serious. Anyway, we'll stop with that, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. قف هذا.